Hi, my name is Marie and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm going to share my experience, strength, and hope as to maybe it would help somebody who's still sick and suffering. I am the youngest of 5 children. My father was an alcoholic, and he left when I was 18 months old. I never saw him actually drink, and he did get sober roughly when I was a teenager, which is pretty much when I started drinking. So I don't remember my first drink, but I do know as a teenager, I kind of just started doing it like all the other kids in the neighborhood, and it was something that we did for fun, and I thought it was fun, although I will say it probably wasn't, I wasn't a responsible person. I do remember as a teenager babysitting and drinking the people's, booze, or raiding their cabinet that had alcohol in it. I did never get in any trouble, though, as a child with my drinking, and I actually, ended up, graduating high school, and I did go on to college. I basically just drank on the weekends. And when I was 19, I did have a fake ID, and spent a lot of my time in a bar with a friend of mine. We would play pool and drink, and I learned at a young age that drinking hard liquor really wasn't a good thing for me. So I did try to stay with the beer because I really didn't like it. But I knew I would be safe with it and not black out and so forth. And I was married at 23, and I married a guy who was the product of 2 alcoholic parents, active alcoholic parents. And, everything looked good on the outside. We had a decent life together. We did drink, but again, nothing, out of the ordinary, so to speak. My dad, who had gotten sober, whom I wasn't very close with, but during my 20s, became a little bit closer with him, and he shared a lot about, his alcoholism and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And of course, at the time, I always thought it was just him preaching, and that I knew a lot and that I was somewhat protected, which is not the case. The disease of alcoholism is, is a disease of the mind, so to speak. I did know, during my 20s that there was, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. I didn't know if it was because I was an adult child of alcoholics, and I, would become obsessive with spending and, and other sorts of things. And, I went on to have 2 children, and basically I, everything always had to look good on the outside. My kids always had to be dressed perfect, and because I think, I would tell myself everything was okay, if that was the situation. And, all the while, I would drink, again, not on a daily basis yet. And so pretty much what happened is, I had a good job, and I had taken a transfer to within my company to Boston, and it was working a night shift, 4 to midnight. And that's pretty much when my drinking took off. I worked with, a bunch of guys, and during work hours they would, go hang out down at the bar, and, I'd join them, and we'd go out after work at midnight to drink. And it was kind of like, I was having fun again, which I sort of felt like, wasn't happening in, being married with 2 children and working. And, so that's kind of how it started for me. And, I spent a lot of time, again with these people and going to bars, and I sort of felt like it was something I never did in my 20s, so that maybe I was missing out, or I had missed out. So as it went on, I became a daily drinker. I went back to a day shift, and for me, how it started is I would have a glass of wine or beer with my dinner every night, and it was just that one, and that one turned into 2, and 2 turned into 3, and eventually I was drinking a whole bottle of wine. And then some of these other mothers, if I would go out with them, they would have these fancy drinks. So I thought, gee, I'd like to have one of those too. So I had chose to drink a Captain and Coke. And that for me was the first time that I could actually feel the sensation, I think, of the Captain, and was kind of like, boy, this is nice. And from there, that's pretty much what I chased. I had was progressing into being able to drink an awful lot of booze, and people would even say to me, like, oh my God, I can't believe you drink that much. Like, if I drank that much, I'd be on the floor. And I just, because it was always more and more. And so what ended up happening is, I was unhappy in that marriage, and chose to get a divorce. And it was one of those things, if you were married to him, you'd drink too, and always sort of putting the blame elsewhere and defending my right to drink, which I didn't know I was doing at the time. And I started dating a guy that I went to high school with, and he basically drank, like I did, and he never gave me a hard time about my drinking, and which was, awesome. And my kids were always, on my, on me about my drinking and so forth, and I was getting to the point where I would, promise them that I wasn't going to drink. Me and my boyfriend would be, drinking on a Saturday night, and my older daughter at the time, maybe 11, was hiding the bottle, and all along thinking, this is normal, this is okay. And so for that whole next year, my drinking kept progressing, and I was driving with a bottle, like a water bottle, and filling it up, in my car, driving every day, under the influence. And, I even remember at one point, I had gone to an amusement park, and I had mapped out the whole amusement park on where the little places I could have a drink while the kids were, going on their rides. And, that was basically becoming my life, was trying to figure out, when I was going to get my booze. And, towards the end of that, though, I was waking up every morning and saying, I'm not going to drink today. And then I found myself, at 4 o'clock when I was getting out of work, pulling right into that liquor store, to get something to drink, because by then I was feeling better, and what was I thinking, and I'm fine, and drinking against my permission. And basically what happened is one Saturday afternoon, I had brought my 2 children and a friend to the mall, and they went off shopping. And I went into, a local restaurant, sat at the bar, had lunch, and, a glass of wine, and, proceeded to drink. And then I had gone to the liquor store, because I had to get my booze for that night. And I picked up some rum that was, they were advertising, and when I got out into the car, I had poured it into my water bottle, and proceeded to drink into a blackout. And I had to go back and get the kids at the mall, and which I did. And I do recall my younger daughter, asking what I was drinking, and said, "Oh, that's just root beer." And so I did. I got everyone home to the house safe, and luckily. And then I had to drive my older daughter to her friends, and I prayed the whole way there, because I really didn't want to be driving, but knew I had to do this. And and again, luckily I got her there safe. And the next morning, my older daughter called me out on it, and she said, "Mom, were you okay last night? You were driving a little funny." And of course I defended, and said, "Yeah, everything was fine." But I think right at that moment it hit me that I couldn't do this anymore. I just couldn't do this anymore. And I knew I had to do something. And so I actually had, it took a couple of days, but I did finally make some calls to go to a rehab, because I knew I had to be removed from the alcohol. And my boyfriend was going away for the weekend, and I thought, perfect, he can go away and I'll go into rehab, because I think I was afraid if I told him that he would talk me out of it. So I was waiting for him to get up to where he was going. And that afternoon he called me, and he had been in a car accident. And, he was panicking. And, of course, all I could think is I need to get him to Vermont, because I need to get to detox. And so we were able to get his car towed to my house, and, off he went. And, I called and let him know that I was going to put myself into a detox, which I did go in. And ironically, when I was making this decision to go into detox, my birthday was, within a week, and I was going to wait until after my birthday. And I had called my ex-husband to make sure he could take the kids, and was saying to him, I'm going to wait. And as I was saying, I'm going to wait, I knew that if I waited, then it wasn't going to happen. So I actually spent 11 days in that detox, and over my birthday, which was okay. It really was. I was in that detox. I was there less than 24 hours, and I heard about the disease of alcoholism, and it hit me that this is, this was me. This is what I had, and I had been searching, to figure out what was wrong with me, and it was alcoholism. And I learned in there how to stay sober and what I needed to do, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And they were, having you prepare to go home and plan out your meetings, and, they said you really need to go to a meeting right when you get out. And I kept thinking, how am I going to do that? I have my children, and I haven't seen them in 11 days. And, I had a 2-hour ride home, and I was scared. I was so scared to go home. And I knew I needed to get to a meeting that night, and I reached out to my cousin, who was sober, and she took me to my first AA meeting outside, of the detox. And I felt the comfort of being in these meetings, because it helped me feel safe. It helped me realize that I wasn't alone, and that, I could stay sober one day at a time. And, I just had to listen to some of the suggestions, and I was going to be okay, and that it wasn't my fault, that I had this disease. And, as of now, I one day at a time, I've stayed sober, 6.5 years. The man I was dating, when I went into detox, he actually got sober. We're like 14 days apart. We are now married. We have a good life, and a life that I never imagined I could have. And my dad had, said to me when I had made the decision to go into a detox that I was going to have a life second to none. And he was right. And, in early sobriety, I had learned that, you can stay sober under any and all conditions, and you don't have to drink even if you want to. And that happened to me 3 months sober when my dad died unexpectedly. And I knew that if I went to a meeting and I raised my hand and I shared my story, that the fellowship, would help me get through it, and they did. And it was a very, very tough time, but I didn't have to drink over it. And that's what I've learned. I don't have to drink even if I want to. And with the help of AA and the fellowship and the people and the organization, I don't have to go back to that life ever again. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.